The champagne glass shattered at her feet as three women surrounded her. Before she could react, she felt the sickening rip of fabric down her back. Her beautiful silver gown hung in tatters while they laughed. They had no idea her husband was about to walk through that door. If you've ever been humiliated in public or dreamed of the perfect comeback, you need to hear what happened next. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell because this story takes a turn nobody saw coming. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The rain started just as Emma Chen merged onto I-95 South, leaving Greenwich behind. Friday evening traffic crawled through Westchester County, a river of brake lights reflecting off wet asphalt. But she didn't mind the slowness. Her mind was still in the Bronx, in the women's shelter where she'd spent the afternoon. Rosa's baby had finally smiled at her. 3 months old, born in the shelter after Rosa fled with nothing but the clothes on her back and a garbage bag of her daughter's toys. Emma had held that baby, felt the weight of new life that had started in terror but landed in safety. The Hope Rising Foundation had funded that shelter, along with 17 others across the Northeast, but Emma never told anyone. The tax documents listed her as Anonymous Donor 1. That's how she preferred it. Her phone buzzed, Sarah's 5th text in an hour. Please tell me you're still coming. I never get promoted. I need my best friend here. Emma smiled, typing back one-handed. 20 minutes away. Save me a seat. The navy dress she wore seemed fine this morning, understated, comfortable for a day of site visits. But now, approaching Manhattan's glittering skyline, it felt inadequate. The Edison Club wasn't just any bar. It was where Connecticut hedge fund managers and Fifth Avenue socialites went to be seen. Emma had attended charity galas in gowns that cost more than most people's monthly rent. But tonight she looked like someone who'd spent the day holding babies and reviewing shelter security protocols. She glanced at herself in the rearview mirror at a red light. Minimal makeup, hair in a simple knot, small pearl earrings. Daniel always said she was beautiful no matter what she wore. But Daniel was in California tonight, 3,000 miles and 3 time zones away, closing a deal that would probably make the Wall Street Journal. 20 blocks north, Victoria Ashford tapped her Cartier bracelet against her champagne flute, the crystalline ping demanding attention. I'm sorry, but if you can't get us a table at Cipriani next week, what exactly am I paying you for? Her assistant's voice crackled through the phone, apologetic and desperate. Victoria waved her manicured hand dismissively at her 2 friends, Jessica and Margot, while the poor woman stammered about reservation waitlists. Figure it out, Victoria said, then ended the call without waiting for a response. God, help is so hard to find anymore, Jessica muttered, her New Jersey accent thickening with her 3rd glass of Dom Perignon. My housekeeper asked for Sundays off. Sundays? That's when I host brunch. Margot laughed, her Maryland drawl smooth as aged bourbon. You should see the applications we're getting at the foundation. Half these people can't even format a proper email. It's like, did you even go to college? The 3 women sat in their usual corner of the Edison Club, the best table, the one with a view of the entire room. They came here every Friday, their designer handbags occupying the 4th chair like a security perimeter. This was their kingdom, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, the kind of old money elegance that separated the worthy from the wanting. Victoria spotted her first, the woman in the navy dress, clearly lost, scanning the room with the nervous energy of someone who didn't belong. Oh, this should be entertaining, Victoria murmured to her friends, her lips curling into something that wasn't quite a smile. Emma finally spotted Sarah near the back, waving enthusiastically. She started weaving through the Friday evening crowd, murmuring excuse me and sorry as she navigated between tables. The Edison Club's jazz trio played something sultry and low, Miles Davis, maybe, and the sound of expensive laughter floated above the music like champagne bubbles. She was 3 feet from Sarah's table when it happened. One moment Emma was stepping past a cluster of men in Brooks Brothers suits. The next, her hip caught the edge of a chair, her balance shifted, and her hand shot out to steady herself, connecting with something cold, wet, and glass. The champagne flute tipped, spilled, shattered. And 3 pairs of furious eyes locked onto her like missiles finding their target. Oh my God! The shriek cut through Miles Davis like a knife through silk. Watch where you're going. Emma's heart stopped. The blonde woman, ivory Valentino dress now splashed with champagne, rose from her seat with the slow, deliberate fury of a queen insulted before her court. 2 friends flanked her immediately, a synchronized movement that spoke of practiced cruelty. I'm so sorry, I didn't see. Didn't see. Victoria's voice dripped with theatrical disbelief, loud enough to turn heads 3 tables over. Or didn't Kay? Emma reached for her wallet, hands trembling slightly. I'll pay for the cleaning, of course. Cleaning? Jessica's laugh was sharp, nasal, cruel. Honey, you couldn't afford to clean this dress working a month at wherever you work. Let me guess, retail? Waitressing. Heat flooded Emma's cheeks. 14 years dissolved in an instant and she was back at MIT, scholarship student, thrift store dress, legacy kids laughing as she fled to scrub wine stains in a dingy bathroom. That girl who'd promised herself never again, never small, never powerless. Look at her dress. Margot's drawl was lazy, bored, the worst kind of dismissive. I think she walked into the wrong establishment. TGI Fridays is on 3rd Avenue, sweetheart. You know what? Victoria stepped closer, invading Emma's space with practiced aggression. I think you did this on purpose. Wanted attention from our table because you saw the bottles we ordered. Women like you always want what we have. That's not. Emma's voice came out smaller than she intended. Save it. Victoria's hand shot out, grabbed Emma's arm, hard, fingers digging into soft flesh. You're going to pay for this dress. All $12,000 of it. The music seemed to fade. Conversations stuttered into whispers. Phones emerged from handbags like predators sensing blood. Emma saw the shift happening, the transformation from private humiliation to public spectacle, and her stomach dropped into free fall. Please let go of my arm. Oh, she's going to play victim now, Jessica announced to their growing audience, her phone already recording. Classic. Emma tried to pull away, but Victoria's grip tightened, yanked, and the world tilted sideways into nightmare territory as she felt it. The sickening sound of fabric surrendering, the delicate stitching giving way, the entire shoulder seam of her dress tearing open like skin. Air left her lungs. Her hands flew up to catch the falling fabric, but the damage was catastrophic. Shoulder exposed, bra strap visible, a significant portion of her torso on display in the middle of Manhattan's most exclusive bar. 2 seconds of shocked silence. Then Victoria's face split into something ugly and delighted. Oh my God, did you see that? Margot was filming now, her voice gleeful. Her dress just fell apart. Cheap fabric, cheap woman. Laughter erupted from their table, spread like infection to nearby witnesses. Other patrons looked away uncomfortably, but no one moved, no one intervened. This was Manhattan, this was money, this was none of their business. Emma's hands shook violently as she tried to gather the torn fabric, hold herself together, but her fingers wouldn't cooperate. 14 years of building walls, of promising herself strength, of creating something so substantial no one could make her feel small again, and here she stood, exposed, trembling, powerless. Just like before. I should leave, Emma whispered, but her voice disappeared into the jazz music and cruel laughter. Oh no. Victoria blocked her path, phone recording at eye level. You're not leaving until you apologize for ruining my dress and embarrassing me in front of my friends. Apologize. The word came out broken. On your knees would be appropriate, Jessica added, and the three of them howled, a sound Emma felt in her bones, in her marrow, in every childhood memory of not being enough. She scanned the crowd desperately for Sarah but couldn't find her friend's face among the sea of turned heads and raised phones. Where was she? Why wasn't anyone helping? Why was she alone again? Are you crying? Margot zoomed in with her camera. God, this is pathetic. Victoria, are you getting this? Every second, Victoria confirmed, her finger swiping across her screen. And, posted. #cheap dress problems #know your place. Emma's chest constricted. She couldn't breathe properly, couldn't think past the roaring in her ears. The Edison Club's warmth had transformed into suffocating heat. Too many eyes, too many phones, too much exposure. Her hand moved toward her purse, toward her own phone, toward Daniel's number and the sound of his voice telling her she was safe, she was loved, she was. Jessica snatched the phone before Emma's fingers closed around it. No calling your little friends for help, she said, dangling the device just out of reach. Face the consequences of your actions. The manager appeared then, middle-aged, expensive suit, the kind of professional smile that promised discretion, and Emma felt a flicker of hope. Is there a problem here, ladies? Yes, Victoria said immediately, her voice shifting into something smooth and reasonable. This woman assaulted me, destroyed my $12,000 dress, and now she's causing a scene. We're VIP members, you know us, Richard, and we'd appreciate if you'd handle this appropriately. Richard's eyes moved to Emma, her torn dress, her tear-stained face, her shaking hands clutching fabric, and something shifted in his expression. Not sympathy, but calculation. I'm going to have to ask you to leave before we call security. The words hit like physical blows. But I didn't. They grabbed me. They. His voice was firm now, dismissive. Please don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. 14 years ago, she'd run. She'd fled to that bathroom and scrubbed and cried and promised herself this would never happen again. She'd built companies, made millions, married a man who treated her like she hung the moon. But none of it mattered because here she stood, powerless, dismissed, erased. Just like the girl who'd never stopped living inside her chest. Emma's vision blurred. Her knees felt weak. The room tilted slightly and she thought she might actually collapse right here on the Edison Club's marble floor, give them the complete humiliation they seemed to crave. And then she saw him through the glass doors. The bartender dropped a glass. The sound of shattering crystal cut through the noise like a gunshot. The manager's face drained of color so quickly Emma thought he might faint. A woman near the entrance actually gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Daniel Park stood in the doorway, rain glistening in his dark hair, Tom Ford suit perfectly tailored despite the weather, his eyes locked on Emma with an intensity that made the air itself seem to vibrate. Those eyes that usually held warmth, laughter, infinite patience. Now they were cold, arctic, the kind of cold that burned. He didn't run, he didn't shout. He simply walked forward with terrifying calm, and the crowd parted before him like water dividing a round stone. Every step Daniel took seemed to echo despite the music, despite the whispers erupting like wildfire across the room. Emma watched him move through the crowd and felt something shift in her chest. Not relief, not yet, but the first breath after drowning. He reached her without acknowledging anyone else, his hands moving to remove his jacket with practiced precision. The silk lining whispered as he draped it over her shoulders, covering the torn dress, his touch gentle on her bare skin despite the fury radiating from every line of his body. "I've got you," he murmured, so quietly only she could hear. Then he turned to face the three women, and Emma watched Victoria's expression transform in slow motion. Confusion bleeding into recognition, bleeding into absolute horror. "Mr. Park." Richard materialized at Daniel's elbow, his voice climbing 2 octaves into panic. "We didn't know, Mrs. Park was. We had no idea. Get out." Daniel's voice was soft, conversational, somehow more terrifying than shouting. "Pack your office. You have 20 minutes before security escorts you from my building." "Your building." Richard's face went from white to gray. "My building. My bar. My security cameras." Daniel held up his phone, the screen showing crystal clear footage of Victoria grabbing Emma's arm, the dress tearing, the phones coming out to film. "I've been watching from my car for the last 3 minutes. Called my attorney 2 minutes ago. She's already drafting the paperwork for your termination and the assault charges." Victoria's champagne flute slipped from her fingers. The sound of shattering glass punctuated the silence that had fallen over the entire bar. Even the jazz trio had stopped playing. "Oh God," Victoria breathed. "Oh my God, Mr. Park, we didn't know she was." "You didn't know what?" Daniel's voice could have frozen the Hudson River. "That you shouldn't assault women? That you shouldn't destroy property? That you shouldn't humiliate someone for entertainment? It was an accident, the dress just." "Really?" Daniel turned his phone screen toward them, hitting play. Emma's voice came through clearly. "Please let go of my arm." Then Victoria's grip tightening, the yank, the rip. "Because this footage, which is already uploaded to 3 separate cloud servers and has been viewed by my legal team, shows something different." Jessica had gone green. Margot's mascara was tracking down her cheeks in black rivers. Victoria looked like she might vomit onto her Louboutins. "I own this building," Daniel continued, his tone still eerily calm. "I own the security system. I own the footage of you grabbing my wife, tearing her dress, filming her humiliation, and posting it to social media." He paused. "Let that sink in. Every camera in this room feeds directly to my phone. I saw everything." "Please," Victoria's voice cracked. "Please, we're so sorry." "No." Daniel's arm wrapped around Emma, pulling her against his side. "You're not sorry. You're scared. There's a difference." The distinction hung in the air like smoke. "I'm calling your employers," Daniel said, and now his voice shifted into something almost pleasant, which was somehow infinitely worse. "Victoria Ashford, Blackstone Associates. Jessica Chen, Goldman Sachs. Margot Whitfield. Oh, that's interesting. Your family's trust fund has a morality clause, doesn't it?" All 3 women swayed slightly, their faces reflecting the same dawning horror. Their lives were about to implode, and they'd done it to themselves. "My wife," Daniel continued, his thumb scrolling through his phone with deliberate slowness, spent today at the Hope Rising Foundation shelter in the Bronx. She held babies born to mothers who fled domestic violence. She listened to women rebuilding their lives after men used power to hurt them, to control them, to make them feel worthless. Emma felt his arm tighten around her waist, anchoring her. Then she came here, to celebrate a friend's promotion, and you three decided to demonstrate exactly the kind of cruelty her charity fights against. He looked up from his phone, his gaze moving from Victoria to Jessica to Margot with surgical precision. You grabbed her. You tore her dress. You filmed her humiliation. You demanded she apologize on her knees. We didn't know, Jessica started. That's the problem. Daniel's interruption was razor-sharp. You didn't need to know. Her identity shouldn't matter. The fact that she's my wife shouldn't matter. What should have mattered is that she's a human being who apologized for an accident, and you turned it into assault and public humiliation. Victoria's hands were shaking so violently her Cartier bracelet rattled. Mr. Park, please, if we could just... Do you know what I want to do right now? Daniel's voice dropped even lower, forcing them to lean in to hear. I want to call every media outlet in New York. I want to send them this footage with your names, your employers, your social media handles. I want to make sure that when anyone searches your names online, this is what they find, forever. Margot let out a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. I want to call your employers, not to report you, but to tell them I'm pulling every dollar of my venture capital firm's investments if you remain employed. Blackstone has $400 million in 3 of my funds, Victoria. Goldman Sachs has $600 million, Jessica. How long do you think they'll keep you when losing you costs them nothing, but keeping you costs them everything? Jessica's legs gave out. She caught herself on the chair, her face the color of old newspaper. And Margot, that trust fund with the morality clause. The one that pays out $5 million when you turn 30 next year. I know your Uncle Harrison. We serve on the same board. I'm very curious what he'll think about this footage. Please, Margot whispered, mascara streaking her face into a tragedy mask. Please, Mr. Park, we'll do anything to make this right. Anything. Daniel's eyebrow raised slightly. That's interesting, because 5 minutes ago you wanted my wife on her knees. The 3 women stood frozen, their designer clothes and expensive jewelry suddenly looking like costumes, pretty wrapping around something hollow and rotten. Emma felt the room watching, felt hundreds of phones capturing this moment, felt the weight of every eye on them. But this time, she wasn't the one shrinking under the scrutiny. This time, Justice wore a Tom Ford suit and spoke in measured tones that promised consequences. We'll do anything, Victoria repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Anything you want. Please. Daniel looked at Emma then, his expression softening just slightly, a silent question in his eyes. What do you want me to do? And Emma realized something that made her breath catch. He would destroy them if she asked, burn their lives to ash without hesitation or regret. But he was giving her the choice. Power wasn't about having the ability to hurt people back. It was about deciding what kind of person you became when you finally had that power. Emma looked at the 3 women, Victoria's trembling hands, Jessica's green-tinged face, Margot's running mascara, and saw something she recognized. Terror of losing everything, of being exposed, of becoming invisible in a world that only valued you for what you had. She'd felt that terror at 18, scrubbing wine stains in an MIT bathroom. She'd felt it at 23, pitching her startup to investors who looked through her like glass. She'd felt it 5 minutes ago, standing in this bar with her dress torn and phones recording her shame. Here's what you'll do, Emma said, her voice steady now, clear enough to carry across the silent room. Each of you will donate $50,000 to the Hope Rising Foundation, not for tax breaks or publicity, but because you need to understand what it costs to help people rebuild from cruelty. Victoria nodded frantically. Yes, of course, whatever you. I'm not finished. Emma's tone hardened just slightly. You'll complete 1,000 hours of community service at our shelters. Real work, cleaning, cooking, listening to stories, holding babies, helping women fill out job applications. Not photo opportunities, not charity galas, not writing checks from a distance. 1,000 hours, Jessica whispered, doing the math in her head. You'll issue public apologies, not corporate statements written by PR teams, but genuine acknowledgments of what you did and why it was wrong. You'll attend our training programs on economic bias, class prejudice, and bullying. And you'll mean it, or you'll do it again until you do. Margot was crying openly now, nodding through her tears. And, Daniel added, his voice still carrying that dangerous calm, you'll leave New York. All three of you. I want transfer requests to your company's California, Texas, or international offices submitted by Monday morning. You don't get to stay in the city where you humiliated my wife. Victoria's voice cracked. That's exile. That's mercy, Daniel corrected, and the word landed like a verdict. Because what I want to do, what every instinct I have is screaming at me to do, is destroy your careers, drain your trust funds, and make sure every social circle from Boston to Miami knows exactly who you are and what you did. He paused. Let them feel the weight of the alternative. My wife is kinder than I am. She believes people can change, that consequences can be teachers instead of punishments, that transformation is possible even for people who probably don't deserve it. His arm tightened around Emma's shoulders. So you have a choice, take her offer and prove her right, or refuse and find out what I'm capable of when someone hurts the woman I love. The silence stretched taut as wire. We accept. Victoria's voice was hollow, defeated, but something else flickered beneath the fear, maybe shame, maybe the first seed of actual remorse. We accept everything. The donations, the service, the apologies, the transfers. All of it. We're so sorry, Mrs. Park, Jessica added, and for the first time, her voice held something genuine instead of performative. Don't apologize to me, Emma said quietly, and every eye in the room seemed to lean in to hear her. Apologize to every woman you've ever looked down on. Every person you've judged by their clothes, their job, their bank account, their address. Apologize by becoming better than this, better than who you were 5 minutes ago. What do you think? Should people always get second chances, or are some actions unforgivable? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know where you stand on this. Margot nodded, her shoulders shaking. We will. I promise we will. Daniel made a gesture, and 2 security guards materialized from the edges of the room. Escort these 3 women out. Make sure they get home safely, then make sure they don't come back to this building without written permission from Mrs. Park. As the guards approached, Victoria turned back one last time. Mrs. Park, Emma, thank you. I know we don't deserve this, but thank you. Emma didn't respond, just watched as the 3 women were led toward the exit, their designer heels clicking against marble in a rhythm that sounded like retreat, like surrender, like the first steps of a very long walk toward something resembling redemption. The Edison Club erupted the moment the doors closed behind them, not with applause exactly, but with the release of held breath, with whispered conversations exploding into full volume, with phones already uploading footage that would break the internet by morning. Emma felt her knees weaken. The adrenaline that had kept her upright was draining away, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Daniel must have felt it because his arm shifted, taking more of her weight, guiding her toward a quiet corner away from the crowd. Emma! Sarah finally appeared, pushing through the mass of people, her face stricken with guilt. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was in the bathroom when it started, and by the time I came out there were so many people, I couldn't get to you. It's okay, Emma said, and meant it. Sarah looked genuinely devastated, her celebration forgotten in the wake of watching her best friend humiliated. It's not okay, I should have. Sarah. Emma squeezed her hand. It's over. I'm fine. But she wasn't fine, not really. The torn dress under Daniel's jacket, the phantom grip of Victoria's fingers on her arm, the memory of all those phones pointed at her like weapons, it would take more than a few minutes for that to fade. We're leaving, Daniel said, his voice gentle now, his hand on the small of Emma's back. Sarah, I'm sorry we're cutting your celebration short. Are you kidding? After that? Sarah laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. I don't think I could celebrate even if I wanted to. Emma, call me tomorrow, okay? Please. Emma nodded, let Daniel guide her toward the back exit, away from the cameras and curious eyes. The rain had stopped. The November air was sharp and clean, washing away the suffocating atmosphere of the bar. Daniel's driver was already waiting, the black Mercedes idling at the curb, and Emma had never been so grateful for tinted windows and leather seats and the promise of privacy. She collapsed into the car, Daniel sliding in beside her, and for a long moment neither of them spoke. I thought you were in California, Emma finally said. I was. Daniel's hand found hers in the darkness, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. We were taxiing at JFK when I got the location alert. You entered the building and I pulled up the security feed because I'm paranoid and overprotective and I like knowing you're safe. His voice cracked slightly on the last word. I saw them surround you. Saw the champagne spill, saw them escalate it, Saw your face when you tried to apologize. He pulled her closer, his other hand cupping her cheek. I told the pilot to abort takeoff and turn the plane around. We hadn't even left the ground yet. You turned around for me. Emma's throat tightened. I'll always turn around for you, Emma. Always. His forehead touched hers, his breath warm against her skin. Even if I have to turn around from the other side of the world, even if I have to walk through fire to get to you, I will always come when you need me. Emma felt the tears she'd been holding back finally break free. But these were different. Not shame, not fear, but relief and love and the overwhelming knowledge that she was safe, she was seen, she was cherished. I felt so small, she whispered. Just like MIT, just like I was 18 again and powerless and... You're not powerless. Daniel's voice was fierce, his hands framing her face. You were never powerless, Emma. Not at 18, not tonight. You built yourself into something extraordinary, not because of money or success, but because you chose compassion over bitterness, dignity over revenge, transformation over destruction. I wanted to destroy them, Emma admitted. For about 30 seconds, I wanted you to burn their entire lives to the ground. I know. I would have done it, too, if you'd asked. His smile was slight, dangerous. Still will, if you change your mind. No. Emma shook her head. You were right. I do believe people can change. I have to believe that, or everything I've built means nothing. The car pulled away from the curb, away from the Edison Club and its whispered conversations, its uploaded footage, its viral moment already spreading across social media like wildfire. Emma pulled out her phone. Jessica had returned it to the security guard and opened Instagram. The hashtag #TheEdisonClub was already trending, thousands of posts sharing the footage, sharing their own stories of being judged for not looking wealthy enough, for not belonging, for being dismissed and diminished and made to feel less than. It's everywhere, Emma murmured, scrolling through the posts. Good. Daniel's voice held grim satisfaction. Let it be everywhere. Let people see what happened. Let them see what you chose to do about it. Maybe it'll make someone else think twice before treating another human being like trash. 3 weeks later, Emma sat in her Greenwich study reviewing the monthly foundation reports when she saw the first email from Victoria Ashford. Subject, Week 1, Los Angeles. Mrs. Park, I know you didn't ask for updates, but my counselor suggested documenting this process might help. I started at the Skid Row shelter yesterday. I showed up in Prada and the director, a woman named Carmen who survived 15 years of abuse, looked at me like I was a child playing dress-up. She was right. I've cleaned toilets, sorted donated clothes, and listened to stories that made me physically ill because I finally understood what my cruelty looked like from the other side. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm trying. Victoria. Emma forwarded it to Daniel without comment. By week 6, Jessica's reports had become almost raw in their honesty. The girl I'm mentoring, Aisha, 17, brilliant, asked me yesterday why I was helping her. I didn't have a good answer because the truth is I'm not helping her for her sake. Not really, not yet. I'm helping her because I need to remember that being from Jersey, from a working-class family, from a place where people struggle, that used to be something I was ashamed of. My grandmother cleaned houses. I used to pretend I didn't know that. God, Mrs. Park, I was so awful. I'm still awful, probably, but I'm trying to be less awful every day. Margot's transformation was slower, more resistant, punctuated by setbacks and complaints, but even her reports showed cracks in the armor. Month 3. The woman whose business plan I helped review yesterday reminded me of my mother, that same fierce determination, that refusal to quit even when everything's falling apart. My mother built our family's wealth from nothing, and I spent 30 years acting like I'd earned it myself, like I was entitled to judge people who reminded me of where we came from. I called my mother last night and apologized for being embarrassed by her accent, by her manners, by the fact that she didn't go to college. She cried. I cried. It was awful and necessary, and I think maybe it was the first real conversation we've had in a decade. Emma read each report, watched the progress through monthly check-ins with shelter directors, saw the slow transformation from performative penance to genuine change, and still kept a healthy skepticism in place because change was easy to perform and harder to sustain. But then the April report arrived from Carmen at the Los Angeles shelter. Emma, Victoria asked me not to tell you this, but I think you should know. She's been coming in on her days off. Not for service hours, just to help. Last week she spent 6 hours teaching resume workshops, using her Blackstone experience to help women transition into finance careers. She's not posting about it on social media, Not telling anyone, just showing up and doing the work. I've been doing this for 20 years. I know the difference between guilt and transformation. This one's real. Emma sat back in her chair, Daniel's jacket from that night still hanging in her closet upstairs, the torn navy dress folded carefully in tissue paper beside it, reminders of the worst moment that had somehow transformed into something resembling hope. Maybe mercy wasn't weakness after all. Maybe it was the hardest kind of strength. By summer, Jessica had created a mentorship program connecting Goldman Sachs executives with underprivileged students across London. Margot's nonprofit had funded 12 women-owned businesses in Austin. Victoria had quit Blackstone entirely to work full-time in nonprofit advocacy, taking a 90% pay cut and what her former friends called social suicide. The Edison Club had been gutted and rebuilt, reopening in July as the Hope Club, walls covered in art from shelter residents, staff trained in dignity and respect, a policy that explicitly welcomed everyone regardless of appearance or perceived economic status. Emma hosted the grand opening in a beautiful emerald gown, Daniel beside her, no fear in her chest this time, just the quiet confidence of someone who'd faced her worst nightmare and discovered she was stronger than the shame that had haunted her for 14 years. Sarah found Emma near the bar, the Hope Club's bar, not the Edison Club's, though they occupied the same space. Everything had changed and nothing had, the marble floors polished to new brightness, the crystal chandeliers casting warmer light somehow. "They are here," Sarah said quietly, nodding toward the entrance. Emma turned, champagne flute steady in her hand, Dom Perignon, the same brand Victoria had been drinking that night, but this time Emma had chosen it, ordered it, owned the moment instead of being owned by it. Victoria, Jessica, and Margot stood in the doorway looking uncertain, uncomfortable, holding their community service completion certificates like shields. 6 months had changed them in visible ways. Victoria's designer armor had been replaced with simple elegance, Jessica's harsh makeup softened, Margot's entitled posture transformed into something almost humble. Emma walked toward them, Daniel a solid presence at her side, and watched them flinch slightly, an instinctive response to approaching consequences. "You came," Emma said. "You invited us," Victoria replied, her voice careful, respectful. "We weren't sure if you meant it, or if it was some kind of test, but—" "It wasn't a test." Emma gestured toward the main room, toward the art on the walls, the diverse crowd mingling, the atmosphere of genuine warmth instead of performative exclusivity. "I wanted you to see what your money helped build, what your work contributed to, what transformation looks like when it's real." Jessica's eyes were already scanning the walls, landing on a painting of a woman holding a child, the artist's signature in the corner read Rosa M. "Is that the woman from the Bronx shelter? She's been taking classes." Emma smiled, genuine pride warming her voice. "She's selling pieces now, supporting herself and her daughter. Your mentorship program helped fund her childcare so she could attend the workshops." Margot's hand trembled slightly on her certificate. "Mrs. Park, I know we've sent reports, but I need to say this in person, I'm sorry. Not because you have power over me, not because I'm afraid of consequences, but because I finally understand what I did to you, what I've probably done to dozens of women over the years without even noticing. We were cruel," Victoria added, her voice thick. "We were cruel because we could be, because it made us feel superior, because we'd never had to face what it feels like to be on the other side of that cruelty. You could have destroyed us. You chose to teach us instead. I don't know if we deserve that, but I promise we're trying to earn it." Emma looked at the 3 women, their certificates clutched like diplomas, their faces holding something that looked like genuine remorse, and felt the last piece of that night's trauma finally release its grip on her chest. "You've completed your service hours," Emma said. "Your obligations to the foundation are fulfilled. But I'd like to invite you to speak tonight, about your journey, about what you learned, about the cost of cruelty and the possibility of change." All 3 women's eyes widened. Jessica actually stepped back slightly. "You want us to speak? About what we did?" Margot's voice climbed an octave. "I want you to speak about what you've become," Emma corrected. "There are people here tonight who've experienced the kind of judgment you 3 practiced. There are also people here who've practiced it themselves and don't even realize it. Your story, the real story, not the viral video version, might help someone choose differently." Victoria's hands tightened on her certificate, her knuckles white. "I don't know if I can, standing up there, admitting what I did in front of all these people. I stood in this room with my dress torn while you filmed me," Emma said, not unkindly but with absolute clarity. "If I can stand here now in this beautiful gown and tell that story without shame, you can stand here and tell yours." The words landed like a challenge and an invitation simultaneously. 30 minutes later, Emma watched from the side of the small stage as Victoria stood at the microphone, her voice shaking but steady, telling a room full of strangers about the worst thing she'd ever done and the 6 months that had followed. "I thought power meant being above people," Victoria said, her eyes finding Emma's in the crowd. "I thought wealth meant I deserved respect without earning it, that my designer clothes made me worth more than someone in a navy dress from a Boston boutique. I was wrong about all of it. Real power, the kind Mrs. Park showed me that night, is choosing mercy when you have every right to choose vengeance. It's believing in someone's capacity to change even when they've given you no reason to believe it." Jessica spoke next, her Jersey accent stronger than Emma remembered, no longer hidden behind practiced smoothness. "I spent years being ashamed of where I came from, so I made other people feel ashamed of where they came from. It's easier to push people down than to pull yourself up. It's easier to mock someone's clothes than to acknowledge your own insecurity. I know that now. I wish I'd known it 6 months ago." Margot's speech was the shortest, but somehow the most raw. "My mother built our family from nothing. I spent 30 years pretending I'd built it myself, judging people who reminded me of her struggle, treating kindness like weakness and cruelty like strength. Mrs. Park could have ruined me. She chose to rebuild me instead. I'm still learning how to be worthy of that choice." The room was silent when they finished, the kind of silence that holds weight and meaning. Then someone started clapping. A woman in a simple dress near the back, a shelter resident Emma recognized from the Bronx facility, and the applause spread like dawn breaking across the room. Emma stepped onto the stage, standing beside the 3 women who'd torn her dress and tried to break her spirit 6 months ago. "I want to tell you why I kept the dress," Emma said, and the room leaned in to listen. "It's hanging in my closet right now, the torn navy dress from that night. I kept it because I needed to remember that true power isn't about never being hurt, never being humiliated, never being made to feel small. True power is about what you choose to do when you finally have the ability to hurt people back." Her eyes moved across the crowd, landing on faces she knew, shelter residents, foundation staff, donors, Daniel watching with fierce pride from the front row. "I could have destroyed these 3 women. My husband wanted to destroy them. They deserved to be destroyed, probably." She paused, felt Victoria tense beside her. "But destruction is easy. Transformation is hard. Mercy isn't weakness, it's the hardest kind of strength, because it requires you to see humanity in people who've shown you none." She turned to Victoria, Jessica, and Margot. "You 3 taught me something important that night. I'd been carrying shame about my past for 14 years, hiding behind success like armor, terrified someone would see the girl I used to be and decide I didn't belong. You ripped that armor away, literally, and I discovered something underneath all that fear." Emma's voice strengthened. "I discovered that the girl who scrubbed wine stains in MIT bathrooms, who worked 3 jobs to pay tuition, who built something from nothing, that girl was never something to be ashamed of. She was someone to be proud of. You didn't break me that night. You freed me." The silence was absolute now, breathless. "So thank you," Emma said, and watched shock ripple across all 3 women's faces. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to choose mercy over vengeance, transformation over destruction, hope over bitterness. Thank you for becoming better than you were. And thank you for proving that people can change, even when they probably don't deserve the chance. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose between revenge and mercy? What did you choose, and do you regret it? Share your story in the comments. Let's learn from each other." Victoria was crying openly now. Jessica's hand covered her mouth. Margot simply nodded, unable to speak. The applause that followed wasn't polite or performative. It was genuine, earned, the kind of recognition that comes from witnessing something true. Later, after the speeches ended and the crowd dispersed into conversation and connection, Emma stood with Daniel on the Hope Club's balcony, looking out over Fifth Avenue's glittering lights. "You know what the best part is?" Daniel said, his arm around her waist. "What's that?" "That dress cost $90. You spent $90 on a navy dress from a Boston boutique, and it ended up changing 6 people's lives, yours, mine, and 3 women who thought designer labels defined their worth." Emma laughed, leaning into his warmth. 7 lives, actually. Rosa sold her first painting last week for $1,500 because someone saw it on the Hope Club's walls and commissioned a series. The shelter director said she cried for an hour when she got the check. 7 lives from one $90 dress. Daniel pressed a kiss to her temple. "I'd say that's a pretty good return on investment." "The best investment I ever made," Emma agreed, was deciding to be the kind of person who offers second chances, not because people deserve them, but because sometimes mercy is the only thing powerful enough to transform cruelty into compassion. She turned to face him, this man who'd turned his plane around for her, who'd stood in that room radiating protective fury, who'd given her the choice of how to wield power instead of wielding it for her. "I love you," she said simply. "I love you too," Daniel replied. Navy dress and all. Inside the Hope Club, the party continued, shelter residents mixing with donors, former bullies sharing their stories with people who'd been bullied, transformation happening in real time across marble floors that had once hosted only exclusivity and judgment. And upstairs in Emma's Greenwich closet, the torn navy dress hung next to $1,000 gowns and designer suits, a reminder that true worth has nothing to do with price tags and everything to do with the choices you make when the world is watching. The best revenge, Emma had learned, isn't destruction. It's becoming someone so complete, so whole, so genuinely powerful that you can afford to be merciful, even when mercy is the hardest thing you've ever done, even when cruelty would be so much easier, even when you have every right to choose otherwise. Because in the end, mercy isn't just about giving someone else a second chance. It's about giving yourself permission to be more than your worst moments, more than your deepest wounds, more than the sum of everything that's ever tried to break you. It's about choosing hope over bitterness, transformation over destruction, and love over fear. Every single time.